Welcome to the fourth video in our series on lawn maintenance. In this video, we are going to look at mowing your lawn for the first time after seeding and what watering and feeding to consider. In our last video, we looked at seeding and top dressing. Hopefully since then, you will have seen lots of new grass coming up in your lawn. The first thing we need to do is determine when the lawn is ready to be cut. This will be partly determined by what sort of mower you are using. In the first video of this series, we discussed the differences between rotary mowers and cylinder mowers. If you have a cylinder mower, you can relax slightly more at this point. However, with rotary mowers, we must be particularly careful not to start mowing the grass too soon. This is because rotary mowers create an updraft, like a vacuum effect. This means that if the seed has not started to put down some roots, it could be hoovered up. For ryegrasses, you should be able to start mowing around 7 to 10 days after germination. For fescue and bent grasses, you're probably going to need to wait at least 15 to 20 days. If you have a mixture of the seeds, then always wait for the longer period. To check the lawn is ready for mowing, try running your hand over a small area. If you start pulling lots of grass up, you will need to wait a bit longer. It is a good idea to make sure your mower is as sharp as possible for the first cut. The cleaner the cut, the more you will reduce the chance of the mower tearing the new grass out of the surface. When the lawn is ready, you will need to be very careful with how you go about mowing the grass. Make sure not to take off too much in one go. A good rule of thumb is never remove more than a third of the leaf in one go. This might mean you need to stage your mowing and height reduction over a period of days or even weeks. Also, think about how you will turn the mower at the end of each run. Machines with 4 wheels may need to be tipped and turned in order for the wheels not to dig in, as a sideways movement will tear new grass out of the ground. Likewise, thinking about making wide sweeping turns with machines that have rollers to avoid the same sort of problems. Whether or not you choose to box off and remove the grass clippings is likely to be determined by the type of lawn you're aiming for. If you are aiming for the centerpiece putting green type lawn, then you will always need to remove the clippings. In other scenarios, we would still normally suggest it's a good idea to remove the clippings if you can, as this will reduce the build-up of any thatch layer. If you choose not to box off and remove clippings, make sure to only reduce the height of your lawn by a very small amount each time you mow it. Leaving clumps of grass clippings is a quick way to create turf disease and kill off your newly germinated seed, as well as damaging the existing turf sward. The big upside of not removing clippings, other than not having to find somewhere to put them, is that you will not need to feed the lawn anywhere near as often. This is because when you remove part of the grass plant, you take away all the nutrition that was in that part of the leaf blade that has been cut away. This may be worth thinking about if you're aiming for low maintenance, but as we've said, you don't want to be taking too much grass off in one go. Your new lawn will look patchy after its first cut. This is completely normal, and it will start to fill in more as you continue to care for it. Don't be tempted to start throwing more seed at it straight away. Give it a few weeks to see what else germinates and how much horizontal growth begins to thicken the sward. Now that you've completed your first cut, you'll need to think about your lawn inputs, namely feeding and watering. Watering is fairly straightforward. For a newly seeded lawn, we don't want to let things dry out too quickly. This doesn't necessarily mean watering every day or flooding your garden, but ensuring that the surface is kept slightly damp so that the new seed has the chance to establish roots. Over the coming months, look to reduce the frequency at which you water. Let the soil dry out a little bit on the surface to encourage the roots of the grass to start foraging deeper in the soil profile for moisture. This will help to toughen up the grass plant and allow it to become more self-sufficient, especially for in periods of stress such as drought. As a final point on watering, the best time to water is in the evenings, when the sun has set for the day. This is because water will take a lot longer to evaporate from the surface and so in effect has all night to soak into the soil profile. This means that you will use a lot less water over time, as you don't need to put down extra to allow for evaporation. It also means that you're likely to keep the soil profile hydrated at depth, because the water you will apply will have the chance to drain through the soil profile before it is burnt off by the sun. This will help to encourage deeper rooting of your grass. Feeding your lawn can be a bit more complex, and we'll be putting together a video about lawn nutrition in the future. However, to decide what to put on your new lawn, we do need a basic understanding of fertiliser makeups. There are two types of fertiliser available, liquid and granular. To apply a granular feed effectively, you'll need a fertiliser spreader, whereas liquids can be put down with equipment as simple as a watering can. You can go to your local garden centre or DIY store to source fertilisers. The key thing will be to understand the packaging. However, for advice for the best products for your particular lawn, we would recommend speaking to companies such as Pitchcare, who have specialists who you can call and they will give you specific advice. Most fertilisers will have what is known as an NPK analysis on the packaging, which stands for nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. These are the key constituents in lawn feeds and what we need to think about when we select our feed. The NPK analysis will be displayed as a ratio, for example 777. Each constituent of the fertiliser is responsible for a different plant response. Nitrogen will encourage vertical growth of the leaf blade. Phosphorus encourages growth and development of the roots. Potassium is responsible for some root growth and also plant health and disease resistance. For newly germinated grass, we want to avoid encouraging too much vertical growth through the leaf blade. Generally, 1/3 of any plant needs to be its roots for it to be able to sustain itself. If we encourage the top growth too quickly, we risk placing unnecessary stress on our grass plants. For that reason, we want the nitrogen value, the first number in the NPK analysis, to be relatively low compared to the other two numbers. The ratios of phosphorus and potassium in the feed should be the higher values, numbers 2 and 3 in our NPK analysis. It is important that we build effective root systems in the new grass plants so that the plants can sustain themselves going forward, hence choosing these nutrients. To be clear, the value of the numbers in the NPK analysis are not important. It is the ratio of each nutrient in relation to the others. A 20, 40, 35 sounds like it has got a lot of nitrogen in, but compared to a 14.05 it doesn't. It's the ratio that matters, not the value. One other common constituent of turf fertilisers is iron. Iron will elicit a rapid green up of the grass and will encourage some photosynthesis. It is widely used by groundsmen, ourselves included, when televised events are coming up to adjust the greenness of the turf for public viewing. However, too much iron can cause problems in the soil profile, and so where possible you want to limit the amount of iron applied to your lawn through the year. Finally, make sure to avoid weed and feed type fertilizers on newly sown grass seed. Weed and feeds contain selective weed killers which will target any weeds like plantains and clover in your lawn. However, young seedlings will not have the strength to tolerate the harshness of a selective weed killer and so may perish under such conditions. For this reason, it is a good idea to avoid selective weed killers or weed and feed products for at least 3 months after you have seeded your lawn. That's it for this video. Look out for our next episode, where we'll start thinking about some common lawn pests. We'll also have a look at the impact of children and pets on lawns, and some options to maintain them through these stresses. Thanks for watching.